Okay.
Welcome to Tnashi's Movie Corner. Today we will be discussing why I like The Dark Knight Rises, which came out in 2012. And it's the third and final film in the Dark Knight trilogy by Christopher Nolan. And stars Christian Bale, Tom Hardy, Anne Hathaway, and Gary Oldman, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Also with Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, and Marin Cotillard. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I probably did. But in any case, 8 years after the Joker's reign of anarchy, the Dark Knight is forced to return from his imposed exile to save Gotham City from the brutal guerrilla terrorist Bane with the help of the Catwoman. So, okay. When this movie first came out, right, I went and saw it in theaters, like I had seen all of them. I'm a huge Batman fan. And I really loved this movie. But after I saw it, I did see some positive reviews, some really good reviews, but I started seeing some hate. Not too much, but I did see some hate. And there was some disappointment in it for most people. And I understand that to a degree, but now, years later, when we're in 2015, people are hating on this movie. If you guys have ever watched Screen Junkies, they have this movie fights thing that they do, which is really cool idea. It's kind of like the verses that I do on my channel, but they go with characters and they argue the points on in front of you and everything, and then they have someone vote for the winner. But in any case, a guy named Nick Mundy actually came out and trash talked The Dark Knight Rises really bad on live movie fights that they did at Comic-Con. And I'm part of an online group, Schmoville, and there was a post on theirs where they were again talking about how bad The Dark Knight Rises is, and you had a few people defending it. A lot of people were hating on this movie, and it seems like this is popping up more often now. I'm seeing a lot just recently, a lot of people hating on this film. And again, I understand a little bit of it, but I don't get it for the most part. I don't understand part of it. So I'm going to give you my review on it, obviously, but at the same time, I really have to go into detail here and explain, title, why I like The Dark Knight Rises. So, let's get into it. First off, it again takes place 8 years after the whole Joker incident, and Batman has kind of gone and sealed himself up within his mansion because of the death of Tom Hardy, our Two-Face, that occurred near the end of the movie. And of course, Batman was being pursued by the police for his death because they set it up that way. So he's hiding out and everything. He's just been kind of biding his time in the mansion, and Commissioner Gordon, played by Gary Oldman, who does a fantastic job in all three movies, he's kind of riled up about the death and the cover-up that happened with Two-Face. So, the thing, and he has a point where he's going to come out and reveal it, and he doesn't. But the interesting thing is, after this 8 years, the crime rate has gone down drastically. There's just not, even with the Batman's disappearance, the police have really tightened their grip on Gotham and really gone into town on taking out these villains. So that was always always good. And I like that part of it a little bit because it explains why Bruce has been able to hide away for so long and not do as much, is because the police have been able to take care of the city. But anyway, so you have this bit where Catwoman shows up, played by Anne Hathaway, and she tries to steal a necklace from Bruce, and he's intrigued. He finds himself intrigued by her, so he kind of he tries to suit up again to go and find her. And also you have Bane, who shows up, played by Tom Hardy, and Bane is kind of wrecking havoc in the city and everything, and he's a formidable force to be reckoned with. So Batman has to kind of rise to the challenge. Haha. Yeah, he has to rise to the challenge and go and fight Bane. But anyway, so Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, I actually love that. Selena Kyle is represented. I've seen her in a lot of different movies as well as comics and shows. So I'm going based off of all those, not just like the I think it's Michelle Pfeiffer from Batman Returns, but I think she did great. I was a little skeptical on it. I thought she could do good, especially after Heath Ledger. I thought she could do good, but I was a little skeptical, and she really delivered for me. She really sold the whole Catwoman Selena aspect for me. So I really enjoyed that. Tom Hardy as Bane, first of all, he's very intimidating presence. He really bulked out. His voice did throw me off for a second, but only because I wasn't quite expecting that voice, and I wasn't used to it from the one trailer I saw. So it did take me a second, but once I got with it, I really like Bane. I like Bane as a character. I like him as an imposing force, and I like his tie-in to Miranda Lambert, another character, and just as a villain, I like the way that he did, and I could understand him the entire time. So maybe it's dependent on the theater, or maybe even after on Blu-ray, I can understand him the entire time. So I really liked him. So Miranda Lambert, that character, I enjoy her presence for what role she plays in the movie. I wasn't overly fond of her, but then I'm not overly fond of the character as it is in the show, and in the comics. So I don't want to spoil who that is if you haven't seen it. Hopefully you've seen this movie, but if you haven't, I don't want to spoil that too much. But I think she worked well enough. But Michael Caine as Alfred, brilliant Alfred. I liked him. There were some real emotional moments in this movie involving him, and I think he delivered really well on that. Morgan Freeman as Fox did fine. It didn't have any complaints. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Blake. Okay. So I'm a big fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he delivers here. I think some of his character, where he talks about, because there's a point where he's talking to Bruce, and he's talking about, I am going to go into spoiled territory just a little, but he's talking about the identity of Batman and how he knows that Batman is Bruce. And I think there's something about that I don't think many people buy, and I certainly didn't buy. So that didn't work for me. But as a cop, and promoted to detective at some point, another minor spoiler, but as that, he worked really well, and I really like the end of his arc and where he ends up. So I enjoy all that. I think the action for the most part was really good. I enjoyed it. There's a couple scenes where it wasn't quite as tight fit as I would have liked. I would have liked it a little better, maybe cut a little sooner, so we couldn't see some of the the doubles like waiting to be hit, as it were. But you know, I was fine with that. The Batman versus Batman versus Bane fight when they're down in the sewers is brilliant. They don't have any kind of music playing or anything. It's just them fighting each other, the grunts and everything as you know, Batman's trying to win. He does a yell at one point because he's so frustrated, and that was a really good fight for me. I really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed the opening with the plane. I thought that was a good way to kind of open the movie and introduce us to Bane. Again, I really like the idea of Bane in general as a villain, and you know, after the Dark Knight, when you couldn't get really Joker back, I think Bane was a good way to go. So I enjoyed that. There's a couple moments that get hit on pretty easily, like, oh well, like, because Bruce starts off and he has some like leg damage after 8 years. There's some cartilage or something that was wrong, so he puts this device on him, and all of a sudden it's healed, and it's like, oh well, that was easy, that wasn't anything to go over. I'm fine with that. Like, for me, that's nitpicking. You're glossing over a point. They had to kind of shorten down some of this, and I wish it was an actual extended movie. I think it would have been better that way, but I'm okay like with them glossing over little points like that. After, you know, again, spoilers, after Batman loses his fight with Bane and he gets thrown into the Lazarus pit, and he has to climb his way out or whatever, you have, you know, Bane with this bomb that's going around Gotham, and it's like a 6-month period or something like that. And during that time, you have Bruce, who has to make it out of the pit and make it back, right? They don't show time spanning, like, you don't get quite the feel that time spanning, or at least some people didn't. I did, but I can see where some people wouldn't get that. So that could have been done a little better. Again, I feel that that's a little nitpicking, but it could have been done a little better. There's a scene where they kind of fix Bruce's back, because you have that iconic moment from the comics where Bane breaks Batman's back, and then Bruce, like, he has it get fixed, and he's like raised to be held in position until, and it's like, you're on your own, you have to learn to walk or whatever, and eventually he does, but they don't showcase how long that takes, so that gets a lot of flack. You know, how does Batman make it back into Gotham when he has no money, and after he gets out of the Lazarus pit, which is in the desert? But it's like, I don't care. Like, I don't want to see that journey. Like, I feel like there's so much more nitpicking going on here, because it really doesn't matter to me. There's a scene where he has like a line that of like a symbol that goes up over a tower or something. Like, this fire goes across the ice and it lights up the symbol. I think it's on the bridge, but that moment gets a lot of crap, because it's like, oh well, he had all the time to do all this, you know, why does he have the time? Well, Batman's always been a symbol, and the symbol's really important to the character and to kind of the ideals he stands for. So while it wasn't necessary, and I would have been fine without it, I don't completely hate it to where I'm like gonna crap on this movie so bad for it. Bane's defeat gets some crap, and I actually liked it. It's a little comedic, I know that, but at the same time, like, by the time he gets defeated, he's already been beaten by Batman, who's now closer to his prime. And I wish that fight had been a little better, but, you know, is what it is. There's a moment where the cops get, like, trapped down in the sewers or something, and pretty much it's like most 90% of the cops. And yeah, that's ridiculous. Like that should never it should never have been that many. But and that is a moment that kind of it does bring it down a little. From like I understand why people don't like that because that's really kind of really noticeable, really present. But you know, I, again, I don't think that overcomes the movie. And for me, like The Dark Knight is a really great movie, but it is a Joker movie, and that's what it is. This movie is a Batman movie, and you don't even see Batman that much, but it is a Batman movie, and so I think there's a big difference there. And there's problems in all three movies. This one just gets more crap put on it, I guess, because it's the finale. But you know, I really like the ending sequence. I like how they resolve everything with Batman, and it's one of the reasons I love this movie. It finally gives me the ending I actually like, the ending I want for a Batman film that I've never really gotten. So it is a good way to end it, and they reference it near the beginning of the movie. Like they reference how it might turn out, and I love the way that it turned out there. Again, I love the way that where Blake ends up at the end of the movie. So I think all that works really well. I really like the action. I really like the acting abilities. There's a point where going into spoiler territory yet again. Sorry. There's a point where Batman kind of gets stabbed, and the look of surprise on his face, and his voice cracks from his usual Batman voice, and you don't hear that. You hear just regular Bruce really talking because of the surprise, and I'm fine with that. There is a character death that was kind of a little off-putting. There's scenes near the end where Batman's trying to save Gotham, and it cuts to him in the Batwing, and it cuts out, and then say the bomb goes off and everything, and you think that Batman is probably dead. And the way they did that shot and the payoff for that shot, doesn't. I can see where people would have problems with it. You understand how everything gets resolved, but and you understand the significance. Like you understood the significance of his death. They hinted at it throughout the entire movie, so you understand that, and you understand why it ends where it ends, because they have little hints like all over the place. But that scene, there's a couple scenes though, again with Michael Caine, where he really just delivers as Alfred, and I really like him as Alfred. So it makes me really interested to see what Jeremy Irons is going to bring to the role. But again, like I highly enjoy this movie. This is more of a sequel to Batman Begins than it's to the Dark Knight. I mean, they reference the Dark Knight a little bit, but they don't reference it that much. And probably, in respect to Heath Ledger, I imagine they wouldn't do that. But it really does feel like it's the sequel to Batman Begins, and the Dark Knight is kind of almost like I hate to call it that, but it's almost like a filler that's not entirely necessary to the progression of the plot, but it's so enjoyable that you don't really care. But anyway, surprisingly enough for some of you guys, this is my favorite of the trilogy, and I can understand no matter which one you pick why it would be up there, but for me it's my favorite. It delivers on Bane, it delivers on Catwoman. I really get to see the story of Batman. I get to see, all the conflicts and everything of him being Batman. I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. Again, I like the action pieces. I like the plot, like the majority of the plot I like. I understand there's a moment where they talk about, this bomb, and it's like set to go off in 6 months or something like that. And they're like, oh, well, why would you set it so long? Well, it's really because I keep going back into spoiler territory, but Bane's kind of goal is to destroy Gotham, and he wants to destroy Gotham as a corrupt Gotham. And at the beginning of this movie, it's not. And so in order to do that, he kind of he kind of releases the prisoners and kind of sets things in motion for it to become a corrupt Gotham again, so that he can destroy it the way that he wanted, and almost be kind of the savior of it in a way, because once it's so corrupt like it was in Batman Begins, then it's not worth saving, right? Or at least that's the kind of the general idea. So all that being said, like, I love this movie. I really love this movie. I love the entire series. This is my favorite movie, and a good part of that is because of the end. I enjoy how the conclusion goes about. So rating it 1 through 10, I will give it a 10. And a 10's really high. A 10's hard to get for me. And there are some little flaws, but they're so minor in my eyes. Like, they're just not as hyped up as people make them, to where I bring it down. This for me is a 10. I just really love this movie, and I love the entire trilogy, and I own the entire trilogy. So anyway, guys, that's where I stand. That's where some of the reasons why I like The Dark Knight Rises, and I really don't understand all the hate. I can see little points here or there, but I really don't understand